Hello and welcome to the commercial collection. This time you join us on a glorious day here at Crystal Palace in the southeast of London. We're here to take a look at the fantastic display of commercial vehicles at the Wheels of Yesterday rally. Well, I'm sure everyone would like to know a little bit more now about the very special fire engine that we've found here at Crystal Palace. Joining me is Jürgen Wirth. Jürgen, you've travelled quite a way today, haven't you?
Yes. From South Germany, I came near Stuttgart, 40 kilometers east of Stuttgart. The city is Schwäbisch Gmünd.
And how long did it actually take you to get here today?
Well, about 2.5 days.
And how was your journey from Germany?
Very lovely. We visited friends in Aachen. Next day we drove to Ostende, and then the next day to Ramsgate and to London.
Now, you've been to Crystal Palace before, haven't you?
Yes, last year we have been here with 3 cars from Germany.
And how did you find last year's show?
Oh, it was very interesting, and this is the reason why we are here this year again.
Now tell me more about this fire engine. I believe it's just after the Second World War it was manufactured?
Yes, its age is, the year is 1949 it is built. It's an Opel Blitz, and the body is made from the company Metz, Karl Metz. It's a special builder for fire engines. And
what about the engine size in particular on this model?
It is a 2.5 liter 6-cylinder engine from the Opel Kapitän.
Jürgen, what about the restoration of this? Do you carry out much restoration on this particular model?
No, I bought it in very good condition. Only things I had to repair was the brakes and some repainting. Rest was okay.
And what sort of road speed would this get up to, do you think?
Oh, not too fast, about 75 kilometers per hour.
Well, Jürgen, thanks very much for talking to us. We hope you enjoy the rest of the show here at Crystal Palace, and thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Well, it's all aboard now at Crystal Palace, and move along, plenty of room at the back, as we find out a little bit more about this 1913 Leyland Model ST. Mike Sutcliffe is with me from Tottenham near Dunstable in Bedfordshire. Mike, what's the history behind this one?
Well, it was built in 1913 for the Wellingborough Motor Omnibus Company, who ran in Northamptonshire, and it stayed with them for about 10-12 years before being withdrawn. It was then sold, and the body was used as a shed in the grounds of Wellingborough Surge Works, which is where I found it some 50 odd years later.
Mike, I've got to ask you, I mean, it was found as a garden shed. It's now in excellent condition. What drives you to maintain a model like this?
I would think madness. Well, just the challenge really to get it done, you know, to get it restored back to original condition. I mean, when I found it, it had trees growing through it and was in an awful state. And most people would think it was just impossible, but nothing's impossible. It's just a lot of time and patience to get it right.
How long did it actually take you to restore?
This one took 2 years, which is probably quicker than the previous ones that I've done.
Now, some of the sign writing on it is quite remarkable as well. Did you actually do any of the writing yourself?
Some of it, yes. I did most of the paintwork myself, and the more complicated sign writing I had a friend do. Yeah, he helped me. But there's plenty of it, and there's about 1/6 of a mile of lining out on it.
Yeah. Now, finding parts for a model like this, I mean, this one goes back to 1913, as we said. Can you find parts easily for it?
Well, I must say I've been very lucky to find parts. Whenever anything early Leyland comes up, I usually try and grab it if I can, because my others are all Leylands, but they're very few and far between now, and you know, anything that you haven't got, you end up by making these days.
Now, you're sitting behind the wheel there. How easy is it actually to drive on the highways and byways?
Once you're used to it, it's quite easy. You know, it's you've got to get used to it. It's got a central throttle pedal and a right-hand gate change here, and push-on handbrake. But once you're used to them, it's very easy. The worst thing is the hot weather in London traffic like today, where it's stop-start all the time because the clutch pedal is very fierce. You know, you need a lot of welly to push it down.
Now, something that has caught my eye as well is this hooter just by your shoulder here. Perhaps you could hoot us away at Crystal Palace.
Okay then.
Well, on a glorious day like today, keeping warm is probably one of the last things that you want to think about, certainly out in the open air here at Crystal Palace. But Eddie Richards is with me now. Eddie represents the London Gas Museum. Eddie, why was this museum actually set up in the first place?
Well, with the introduction of natural gas, obviously future generations wouldn't be able to appreciate the history of the original gas-making industry when it was made from coal. And then the London Gas Museum, which is situated in the East End of London, outlines the history of gas from the very early days, in fact 1812. Originally, the Gaslight and Coke Company was the first gas company to supply gas in 1812. And the museum covers the full history right the way through to modern times, including natural gas and how we drill for gas, and covers a wide range of activities, including a gas radio and gas fridges. So we deal with the cool side as well as the hot side.
And right up to this present day, it's part of British Gas, isn't it?
It's still part of British Gas, and we use the museum for a wide variety of activities, including an education service, because a company's history is very compatible with the national curriculum, both in science, history and geography, and for that reason we have hundreds of school children visit the museum to carry out work projects.
Now here today you've actually brought some vehicles from the museum as well. Perhaps we could take a look at some over here. We've
Yes,
got a particular
certainly.
a Bedford lorry in the corner. I notice on the side it's got the Gaslight and Coke Company, dated from 1812 to 1949. What's the story behind this one, Eddie?
Well, of course, the Gaslight Coke Company was the very first gas company in the world, and as it said, it was set up in 1812 and continued as a private gas company, in fact the biggest private gas company in the world, until 1949, when of course we became a nationalised industry. The Bedford itself is typical of the type of vehicle that would have been used in the 40s, indeed earlier, but this one dates from the 40s and was used for a wide variety of activities. Since it's become the museum's vehicle, it's had an interesting life. It's done the London to Paris for the opening of Euro Disney. It's done the London to Brighton several times, and this year it's doing the Pennine run from Manchester to York. So it's a working vehicle that's used on a variety of activities.
Now what about
Probably
this one
as a
here?
workhorse, this vehicle is even more interesting because it took over from the horse and cart, and it's known as a lister. And the unusual feature about this is that the actual engine is mounted on a turntable, and when you drive the vehicle, all the hand controls are here, but you literally steer and turn the complete turntable, engine as well, for movement. So you're literally steering on the wheel where the engine is mounted.
Just ahead of us here, for a minute I thought it was actually an ice cream truck, but it's not. It's a tricycle, isn't it?
It's a common, many visitors that come to these exhibitions remember Stop Me and Buy One, of course the ice cream vans that used to be used. But this was used in the gas industry by several groups. Because in the early days it was penny in the slot, and the meter collector would collect quite a few pennies on his rounds, and he would meet up with the cyclist who would then take all the pennies back to the depot. It was also used by the lamplighters for replacing the glass in the lamps around the streets of London, and a lot of people don't realise that there's still 1,400 gas lamps in central London, although our modern gas lamp lighter drives around in one of the more modern vans.
Yes, that's the one that's just situated
Yes.
here behind us.
Another interesting vehicle in the sense that although it's what we call modern history as far as vehicles are concerned, the Viva, this was in fact used as a service engineer's vehicle for many years. When it had finished its working life, it was given to our apprentices, transport apprentices, who were given the task of totally rebuilding the vehicle, and I think as you can see they've done an excellent job of building this vehicle.
Yeah,
Again, good working vehicle.
indeed.
Well, that's a small collection here today. I mean, the museum contains a lot more, of course, especially in the history of the company.
Well, Eddie, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. A
welcome.
fascinating insight into the gas museum, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good news for most people here today, and that is that in celebration of a sunny Monday and it being bank holiday, the beer tents are leaning over backwards to make your day an enjoyable time here at the Crystal Palace. Apart from putting out some very posh tables and chairs outside, which they...
Well, we're in the army now here at Crystal Palace, and there's a fine collection of military vehicles here. Mike Hatch is with me. Mike, what's the background to your particular group?
Well, it's just really a group of friends we got together over the years. Instructors, we're all instructors with the cadet forces, and our interest in military vehicles really started when we got the Bedford, which we use for carrying the cadets around to various exercise areas that we use at weekends and things. And we started displaying that at various shows, and as I say, like Topsy, it grew from there. We got hold of two Ferret armoured cars, one here, the Mark 1 and the Mark 2-3, which unfortunately couldn't be with us this weekend. And then we got the Stalwart, which is behind us here, which is the amphibious vehicle. And now we're regularly on the show scene and appearing at the shows up and down, well, in the sort of London South East area.
I was going to ask you actually, how far do you travel with these?
Well, we try to keep it down to about an hour and a half, 2 hours travelling distance maximum. Really, the bed was not too bad on the fuel, but when it gets to the stalwart, when it's down to 4 miles to the gallon, it tends to get a bit prohibitive on the travelling costs. So, and as it's all out of our own pocket, as it were, understanding wife and understanding bank manager.
Now, this particular vehicle that we're standing in front of, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's Ferret Mark 1, which is a battlefield liaison vehicle used, it was used to go between the battle groups, various regiments of tanks, squadrons of tanks when they're out in the battlefield, to obviously pass messages, carry messages, be it by either radio or the usual scrap of paper passing on. High-speed vehicle, very good cross-country performance to keep connection with the tanks.
Would it have carried any particular armaments as such?
Yeah, it's usually armed with, for some degree of self-protection, with either a 7.62 general-purpose machine gun or a 7.62 light machine gun, as well as the crew's own sidearms themselves.
Now, it's in marvellous condition here today. Has it always been this way?
Well, when we got it just over a year ago, it had been in open storage after coming out of the army 2 years previously. Been left in open storage in a field and was, filled with water. It was like a swimming pool inside, and everything was rusted, sea solid. So there was a lot of work had to go into it to, get it up into the condition it's today. And of course, none of the bits and pieces came with it. So we had to track down radios, had to track down all the bits and pieces inside, and a labour of love really. But we got there in the end.
What would have been the year of manufacture of this particular vehicle?
Yeah, it's 1955-56 thereabouts. We're still trying to establish the exact age of it, but it's roughly about then.
With all these vehicles on display, Mike, have any actually appeared in any films or TV series?
Well, I can't say for anyone else in the rest of the crew, but rest of the lineup here. But out of our 3 vehicles, as far as we know, there's none of them have appeared. But again, as with everything, we're always open to offer.
Well, we hope that's very much the case. Mike Hatch, thanks for talking to us.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if you ever worked down the mines at all, you'd certainly be glad to see the vehicle behind me. It's a mines rescue vehicle, in fact. We're going to find out more now from Lynn Mayo, who's one of the present owners. Lynn, what's the make and model of this particular vehicle?
It's a 1956 Leyland Comet mine rescue vehicle. We've got the original colours. We've been finding out about it. The bodywork coach built by Wilson in Stockholm in Lancashire, and we like the vehicle. If we'd had an accident or anything in the mines, I mean, we would have liked to use it as well. So.
Now, it's in remarkable condition here today at Crystal Palace Park. How long did it actually take you to get it up to the standard that we see it at today?
We've spent the last year, like 24 hours round the clock, down the workshop, some nights not going to bed, just trying to get it back as best we can to this condition.
And whereabouts did you find it originally?
It was found in Greek, which is between Falmouth and Houston, in a field, and we transferred it back to our home in Gwyvion and restored it.
Now, the name is quite interesting as well, isn't it? You've actually, I see that the name plate is on the front. There's some flowers, some pretty flowers painted on it. What's the background to that?
Well, we were told this is the original name. The coal board actually named the vehicles as they had them, so we thought, well, we'd like to keep it the same. It really is nice. So Big Bertha it is.
Now, we talked originally at the start of our little chat here today about mines rescue. What sorts of things would this vehicle have provided in the unfortunate event of a disaster in a mine?
Well, they would have changed into their gear in the front part of the vehicle. Then they had lockers on the side where they kept all their equipment, and they would make tea as the people were brought up. All the equipment was stored in lockers at the side of the vehicle, and inside was made, make tea, and they had cupboards and first aid equipment and things like that in general. So it was pretty contained. We still have a couple of the original cupboards inside. We managed to sort of survive, and they're still there. So we're quite pleased about that. And they're numbered, so which is quite nice.
Now, you've travelled quite a way here to get here, up the M5, up the M4 and the A23 presumably to get here today. You've also got some other plans as well, haven't you, for this particular vehicle?
That's right. We are going to Czechoslovakia tomorrow for a rally over there, and then from there we're going on to Holland. So we're hopefully doing quite a lot of travelling with her, because we don't want to just sort of see her stuck there now. We want to use her and enjoy her.
I was going to ask you actually, what were your future plans? So hopefully you hope to be travelling to more rallies and that sort of thing.
We certainly do, and let her be seen, because she is very rare. There were 7 made, and to our knowledge there was only 2 surviving. So it's a pretty rare beast.
Well, Lynn, thanks very much indeed for your time. It's been very interesting finding out about this particular mines rescue vehicle, and we wish you well for the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with me now is Peter Moore from Coulsdon in Surrey. Peter, a rather magnificent fire engine, if I may say so, behind us. What's the history behind the model itself?
Well, it was introduced in the early 60s in America as one of their very first hydraulic platforms. This particular one came from Pensel in New Jersey originally, was sold on to Katowice, and we bought it from a dealer after that.
Tell me, how did you actually come to find it in the first place?
Well, the chap we know out there is a dealer. As I say, we bought a couple of trucks off him, and we said to him we fancy one of this make, and he said, I know one, I will find it for you. And that was it.
Now, what's the year of manufacture of this particular model?
This one is 1966.
And you mentioned as well a little bit earlier on about the hydraulic system. I think I'm right in saying that America was way ahead of us, wasn't it, as far as hydraulics was concerned? What's the story behind that?
That's right, yes, they adopted what were originally street lighting wagons as fire engines originally, which developed the hydraulic platform from there. And they were way ahead of us. This was withdrawn while we're still building them.
Yeah. The storage of such a large machine must cause you some problems. Where exactly do you store it?
In a large barn.
And did you actually find it in this particular condition when it came over from the States?
This is almost exactly as it was withdrawn, yes.
Now everybody who looks at a fire engine always likes to know about the boom and how high does it actually go. How far does it go?
It goes at 80 foot, this one.
And what about any mechanical stories when you first received it? Any interesting stories to tell us about that?
Well, yes, we picked it up from the docks at Southampton in January and got about 8 miles outside Southampton when the rear differential failed and snapped the prop shaft. So it was towed back, and this is its first outing since I got replacement parts for it.
Well, it's looking in pristine condition now, Peter. We hope that you enjoy the rest of the show here at Crystal Palace.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, the commercial collection continues now, and it's time to rest the legs, take a little break here at Crystal Palace, and find out more about Fairgrounds. With me is John Mitchell from Worthing in Sussex. John, this particular model has had quite an interesting background, hasn't it?
Well, it's been involved in fairground transport and accommodation since 1947, when it was first built by Abbey Coachworks in Dagenham, Essex. It's been all around fairgrounds. I don't know the actual owners. I've only owned the vehicle for the last 18 months and still trying to trace the history of it. We're in the process of restoring it at the moment, and an awful lot of work has been done, particularly to the interior, and we're just about getting there at the moment.
So really then, you needed quite a lot to get it up to the standard we see it in today?
Yes, it wasn't really usable in the condition that it was when I first bought it. We had to pretty well gut the inside and do a lot of structural work. But as I say, you know, we're getting there now. It's looking quite presentable, and we're enjoying it most weeks during the summertime.
John, let's talk about cost for a moment. What would one of these have cost way back in the mid-40s?
Well, back in that time, they would cost, this size would have been about £1,500. And by comparison to a house, a small house like 2 up and 2 down, would have been about £500. So it would have been far more expensive to buy one of these than a house. Yeah.
Now it's got the classic living accommodation attached to the back. Tell us a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, it's divided into 3 rooms. It has a kitchen. There is a stove, like a coal and log burning stove, which is also an oven in the kitchen. And in the saloon, it has another stove, which is primarily for heating or just boiling the odd kettle. Everything inside is wood panelled, as you probably saw, and then at the far end there is a kitchen, a bedroom, which is a very compact bedroom, and everything fits like a glove.
So very comfortable indeed then.
Oh, very comfortable, yes. A bit difficult to get out in the morning.
John, to coin one of Lloyd Grossman's phrases, if I could, who would have lived in a house like this?
Well, it would have been not so much a fairground owner, but the fairground ride owner would have lived in here, together with his family, of course.
Yeah. Now, moving to the front here, we've got I believe I'm right in saying a 1959 Scammell.
Yes.
What's the background to that?
Well, it's a Scammell Highwayman. As you said, it was in 1959. It's got a Gardner 10.5 litre diesel engine in it. It's got air brakes, which were just about coming into being at that time. Excuse me. Originally, it was an Arctic unit for a chemical company in Stockport, and it was used for about 10 years for haulage, and then it laid in a scrapyard for about 20 years, and then somebody bought it, started a restoration, and gave up on it. And then it was taken over from there, and it was restored in 1988 into its present condition.
Now, driving one of these must be quite hairy, I would think.
Well, the brakes and steering are not as you would find on modern commercial vehicles. You need to allow yourself a bit more time to stop. And the steering, of course, there's no power steering. It's quite heavy, so it's good exercise driving them. and because of the speed, you have to allow yourself plenty of time.
John, I see you've got your Scammell hat on there, the peaked hat. Is there an owners' club as such?
Yes, there is a Scammell register. Yeah, I belong to the register, and it's a nice thing to belong to, because you get to know all the other members that have got similar vehicles, and if you have any problems with them, they'll always help you out.
Yeah. I notice you've brought one extra member of the family along, Rocky.
Oh, yes.
How does he find being out on the road?
Oh, he loves it. He's a little Scammell dog. He is. He loves Scammells in particular. He'd spend all day in the cab, and he's a well-known feature around the rally fields now. He is.
Great, John. Thanks very much for showing us around. It's been most interesting finding out more background to the fairground scene, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the show here.
Yes, I will. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Even Laura's Fudges is knocking out the Twinkies. Beer Centre's offering upright beer today.
Well, as you can see, there's a full head of steam behind us here now, and to tell us a little bit more about this 1934 Sentinel steam wagon is Vince Gould. Vince, there must be quite an amazing history, mustn't there, to this vehicle?
Well, yes, there is. As I say, basically two main owners, the Glasgow Co-op and the Durham County Council were the last people that it worked for there. Then a respite, then into preservation.
Now, how many of these are actually left in existence?
Oh, I don't know, there's probably about, somewhere in the region of about 190 odd wagons, and some running, some not running, of the Sentinel manufacturer. There's a lot of other people's wagons about, but about 190 Sentinels.
Now, this particular vehicle, actually, as we can see from the delivery here, it actually says on the lorry itself, all coal and coke deliveries, contact 27 Angus Street, Glasgow.
Yeah.
Is that the type of work that it would have done all its life?
Yeah. Well, so long as it was with a co-op, that's all it done was bag coal, bulk coal deliveries, that type of thing to industry. Yeah.
Now, the Sentinel company itself is still in existence, isn't it?
No, the company doesn't exist. The works are still there. It's taken over by Rolls-Royce, well now it's Vickers, and Perkins Engine Company now own and operate the works now.
Now, it's a fascinating vehicle, Vince. How did you actually come by it?
Bought it from a friend of ours down in Fairground. We knew we had many wagons and engines lying around in his yard at the time. We wouldn't say we never thought we'd ever own one. And we'd seen these vehicles there, and we started bartering with him there, and we managed to get one out of him for a princely sum of £400 eventually.
Yeah. Now, let's talk technical for a second. We can see a full head of steam just above. Tell us a little bit about the mechanics of it and how it actually works.
Well, the boiler is a vertical water tube boiler with 24 tubes, which then produces a maximum of 1,100 pounds of steam an hour. Then the steam that is then superheated to a further 850 degrees Fahrenheit, and then passes then via a foot throttle to the engine.
And what sort of fuel does it actually use?
Normally best soft Welsh coal. It's what they're designed to burn, and luckily we're still getting that at the moment.
Yes. Now, I believe you had a problem with the cab, didn't you, some months back?
Yes. Well, some years back. Yeah, the cab was totally destroyed by fire after coming back from a show, and then it was completely rebuilt after that period, the front end of the wagon, and that was when we put the wagon back into the original works firm's colours.
Now, Vince, it's in remarkable condition. You must have spent a vast amount of time in restoring it and keeping it the way it is today. Do you actually go in for any awards as such?
No. We take part in challenges and things like that, but we don't go in for award winning there. It's never been in my nature. I disapprove of award giving there. I like to think everybody gets treated the same. I think that's what the show, because everybody works hard on whatever they got there.
Yeah. So it's true to say then that you're a true rally man?
Hope so.
Vince, finally, let me ask you about the registration of such a vehicle. I mean, how do you go about this sort of thing with the DVLA?
Well, there's no problem. There was a period back when they did say if you didn't have the old log books with vehicles that was led about, if you didn't register them, they would be struck off the register, and it would mean you would have to re-register them again. Well, of course, there was no problem with this because we'd already done that anyhow. But since then, they've relented there now, and people can pick up the old registration and get them back onto the original plates if they prove what the plates was.
Yes. And so, talking of plates, the one that we've got on this particular vehicle, is it
US 5430, it's Scottish. It's Glasgow plate.
And it's the original plate?
The one, yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's go back in time now to 1948 to find out more about this flatbed lorry. It's an Albion Chieftain, model FT37, and Ken Faithful is with me. Ken, what's the background to this particular model?
Well, it was sent from Albion Motors to Bristol Motor Company, who were the dealers for them then, and as a chassis, just supplied as a chassis. And then the local coach builders of the Bristol area built the cab and body, and a local firm at Kingswood, Bristol, took it into service, and it was then called Pinjar Pickle Company, but it was it's now T. Lucas, they're called now, but they're still in business today. And they had it for a number of years in use, and ended up with showmen at Chipping Sodbury, Jack Rogers show people. And when they'd sort of finished with it, it stood in their yard for 15 years, derelict and sort of fell to pieces. And I come along and rescued it, and over a 6-year period restored it to how you see it now. And sort of from then I've sort of rallied it for the past 9 years.
Now let's go back, Ken, to the renewal of it for a second. What sorts of things were you actually involved in that?
Well, completely rebuilt it, stripped it right down to the chassis and started again, renewed all the braking system and the kingpins and the steering. A lot of work on the cab, because it's all wooden framed cab which was rotted right away. So to renew the ash frame cab and salvaged some of the panels, but renewed the front was all new, but mainly really a total rebuild on the cab, which took the longest really. Yeah. Just built it right up from the chassis again really, and sort of got them going.
Now, any vehicle on the road is nothing without its engine. What about the characteristics of this particular one?
Yeah, it's just Albion's own diesel engine. This is the first post-war model they done, using their own diesel engine. The previous ones were petrol engined, and so it's sort of one of their first diesel efforts, if you like, with using their own 4-cylinder engine, 75 horsepower. Quite a robust engine, good for the firms, good workhorse, you could sort of oil treat them, overload them, things like that. They used to take it okay, pretty good Scottish builders,
How far have you travelled yourself in this particular vehicle?
Well, over the years I've been rallying, I've done sort of quite a few thousand miles now, I should think. We've been sort of on the London to Brighton run a couple of times, and various HCVS rallies and road runs. Going on the Trans-Pennine rally later on this year, which is in August. From Manchester to Harrogate, that will be. Yes. So we sort of cover quite a large area over the country, to do as much as we can with it, get sort of pleasure from it now,
Now, you mentioned earlier that you've had many years rallying, in fact. You must have many happy memories, I would think.
Oh yes, quite. You meet other people that's restored vehicles and make quite a lot of friends, all along the line, and new acquaintances, and chat about old times and the old ways, how things were built and made. Pick up quite a bit of information actually about how to go about jobs, because a lot of the older people now are going on and losing all the skills and everything, and sort of find it difficult then to go back to the old times of how things were made. Modern technology now is completely different.
Yeah. Well, Ken, thanks very much for telling us more about your Albion. We wish you well for the future.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, it's time for a little musical interlude now at today's show, and it's the turn of street organs, and Ted Chalton from Epsom in Surrey is going to tell us a little bit more. Ted, what was your first interest in these organs?
I first attended a traction engine rally at White Waltham about 35 years ago, and the organs were the things that attracted me. And having a small family, I couldn't afford one at the time. When I grew up, I began looking, and we were really looking for a barrel piano. But since a barrel piano wasn't forthcoming, we started to have a look for street pianos, which is street organs, I beg your pardon, which is what we've got now. And this is a fairly recent one, about 3 or 4 years old, and this was made by Alan Pell, the organ builder from Lincoln.
And where did you actually get to know about them in the first place?
We actually saw them advertised in World's Fair, and we sort of dashed along and listened to them and fell in love with them and played them, you know, and bought them at the time.
Well, for the non-connoisseurs amongst us, perhaps you could explain how one of these street organs works.
It's a bit difficult. There's a tracker bar here, which has got a series of holes in. It's difficult. I can't show you. Perhaps I can I just wind it back a minute. There we are. Now, what happens when the paper music passes over the holes? It collapses a small air motor inside a reservoir inside the organ, and allows the air then to pass to that particular note, and it's a vacuum system, purely and simply. You know, that's as near as I can put it in lay terms. You know, it's just a question of letting air through and collapsing a motor, really, and then allowing the pipes to play.
Now there's another one actually just to our right here. It's got a name Rose on the front of it. What's the history behind this particular one?
We used to take an old lady to traction engine with us, and she died unfortunately a few years ago, and her name was Rose. So we, in actual fact, thought we would like to name this after her. So we had the little plaque made and put Rose. The odd thing is, if I can show you, this one here. If you look on here, we bought this from Alan Pell, and a fortnight after we got it home, we noticed that, in fact, the barge has got Rose written on it as well. Oh, right. And it was just purely coincidence. There was nothing sort of organised about it at all. It's rather nice, really, and it's a nice memory to the old lady.
Is Rose actually set up for us to hear some music?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we could hear a little bit of the tune.
It's on my way.
Well, a wonderful performance there from Rose. What's your wife's name, by the way?
Betty.
Betty. Thank you for that, Betty. Ted, perhaps we can move over to the furthest street organ here now. What's the story behind this one? This looks a lot older, obviously.
This is, as far as we know, it's between 1900 and 1916. More than that we don't know. It was found in a children's home in Luton, and it was painted pink and blue at the time. Yes. It's been stripped off by a chap named Terry France in Chichester, who part restored it, and we acquired it from him, and we've done a fair bit of work to it, and it plays reasonably well, but it is, as I say, it's its age. It's 90 years old, and after a day in the sun it sounds 90 years old, unfortunately, you know, and but it just, if you come in the mornings when it's a bit damp, it sounds much better. But would you like me to play?
Well, we will in a moment. Yeah. Well, could you actually put a value on this thing?
Well, anything between £3,500 to £4,000 up to £9,000. You know, that's all I can say. It's only really worth what somebody will pay, but we know they go from £3,500 to £9,000. But this one would probably be about £3,500 to £4,000, because it's not the greatest on earth, you know, but it plays.
Ted, before we close, the central panel there has got a very interesting story. It's one that I've always wanted to find out. What's the significance between the organ grinder and the monkey? We've all heard about the story.
Right. I can show you here. This box here was where the monkey was kept at night, because the organ grinders were very poor people, and they slept in stables by and large. So they popped the monkey in the box, lifted the box out, and then up into the hayloft, and they both slept up there together. But during the day, the monkey was very important in as much as he was the chap who collected the money. And if you don't get any money, you can't keep being, you know, you just die if you can't. And farthings were very important to organ grinders in those days, you know, when a penny bought a lot of stuff. All right?
And there is actually a monkey on the back there as well, isn't there?
I'm afraid he's not a real one, but the RSPCA wouldn't like that, I don't think, anyway.
Well, Ted, thanks very much for talking to us. We've actually run out of time. We'll have a little burst from the street organ in just a second. Yeah. And that is all, in fact, from this year's event. We hope that very much that you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. Until the next time, from all of us, it's goodbye. Play us out, Ted.